I was gonna think of something to say for the intro, and I forgot, but whatever. Welcome to the channel. This is Movie Stuff. I review movies and I talk about movies, and I should probably think of a better name for this channel as well, but still a work in progress. Today I will be reviewing the new Darren Aronofsky movie, Caught Stealing. This is a crime drama with some hint of comedy and thriller within it, some action stuff as well. Stars Austin Butler and a pretty stacked supporting cast, including Zoe Kravitz, Regina King, Matt Smith, Vincent D'Onofrio, Liev Schreiber, and Bad Bunny. Darren Aronofsky, a filmmaker typically perceived as being somewhat pretentious, somewhat lofty in his ambitions, and makes films that are quite dour and are just generally bummers. But with Caught Stealing, he is deviating drastically from that and creating a film that, for the first time really in his entire career, is largely concerned with being primarily entertaining and not like thematically challenging. Not to say this is a shallow film in any sense, but it's certainly more fun than like Mother or Requiem for a Dream. Austin Butler, also one of the biggest young movie stars really in the entire world, is making a very interesting choice with this film that feels indicative of something that like De Niro or Pacino would do. It's a very like 90s Hollywood movie star role to take. I think it's a pretty interesting choice, post Elvis, post Dune Part 2. He's certainly like towing the line between playing weird freaks and like being just kind of a normal, charming Hollywood star. And this one is certainly more in the latter section. But to get into my thoughts on this film, I thought generally this was a really fun time and a surprisingly solid crime film that is really elevated by the quality of the performances and the filmmaking on display. A very character-focused film, and Butler's character is written incredibly well. Interesting to see him play a guy who's kind of a loser and struggling with alcoholism and regret and thinking about what he could have been. And while there's a lot of crazy antics within this film and just a lot going on, and like Matt Smith with a mohawk and Bad Bunny going crazy, it is at the center of it a really emotional story about a guy trying to move on that I found to be really compelling, not only through the screenwriting but also through Butler's performance. A lot of close-ups, a lot of moments where he has to really hold my attention and be the emotional core of this film, and he nails it. I would argue the film maybe needed to give him a bit more space as a performer, as there are some moments where you could have just had a long take of Butler acting, but there's a lot more style and energy to this film than that. It moves incredibly quickly. The pace is just like feverish, and there's always like this 90s punk rock, garage rock, New York style sort of music playing in the background. It really gives this movie a pulse. There's just like a palpable energy to this film all the way through, a really great momentum. Meanwhile, Darren Aronofsky is doing really great stuff as a filmmaker here. Always seems to be a couple steps ahead of the viewer and is really subverting expectations with both the way that he's shooting things and the way that he structures this narrative. There's a couple moments that I really did not expect coming out of this film. Like they go places and they do things very surprising with this narrative. And obviously I'm not going to spoil this film, but Butler's character really runs through the emotional gamut here. It's cool to see a crime movie from the perspective of a civilian who is, for the most part, just trying to save his own skin and trying to protect the people that he loves, rather than like a typical noir that is largely through the eyes of a cop or a private eye. Because here Butler doesn't have that much skin in the game, but he's like gradually getting pulled deeper and deeper into this world of New York crime. The action sequences succeed at being suitably tense, but also having quite a bit of fun to them. It's really balancing this tone well of kind of feeling like a live action GTA movie and just how bombastic everything is, but also keeping everything grounded and not letting the pace get so out of hand that the viewer isn't allowed to stop for a moment and kind of feel the emotions of what's going on in this film. In terms of the performances, like I mentioned, Butler is great in the lead. I thought Zoe Kravitz and him had really great chemistry. Matt Smith is not in this film too much, but when he is, he's just like an absolute shot of adrenaline. I would like to mention Bad Bunny, who is like genuinely great. It doesn't feel like a stunt casting. Like a lot of times whenever a musician or a pop star is trying to get into acting, they play someone who like sings or something, but this is just like a normal role that Bad Bunny is doing a really great job in. Has a lot of personality to him, has a lot of charisma, but is also like genuinely intimidating in an antagonistic role. Everyone here is very charming and zany, but once again are able to feel at least moderately human. I do have some issues with the dialogue. Generally the script is quite good, especially in the way that it's structured, but some of like like just the simple single lines, especially early on in this film, I found to be a little bit weak and just weren't as clever as I think the rest of the movie is. But luckily the performances are so charming that it really doesn't matter all that much. Another minor complaint is structurally, this film drags a little bit in the back half, largely because there's this very intense character moment with Butler that feels like it's pulling you into the third act of the film, and I assumed there was going to be like one more big sequence, and then it turns out that there's like 3 or 4 more, and it's actually like 40 minutes left. And I'm not necessarily saying you should cut any of those scenes or any of those action moments, because they are some of the best of the film, but I think the rhythm of it just made it feel like it was going to end soon, and so those moments drag just a little bit. But largely my complaints here are nitpicks. I think that this is an incredibly well-directed film. Aronofsky is doing a lot with the visual language and the visual storytelling here. He's delivering exposition in an entertaining way. He really gets to the heart of what this film is about, not only the character of Butler trying to get through things that he's done wrong in his life and struggling with alcoholism, but also a film very much about the city of New York. This certainly has adoration for the city, but in a couple of moments also gets into like the grimy and dark, violent side of New York. The heavier themes are there if you want to dive into them, but you can also just like watch this as an incredibly fun, gritty crime movie that kind of harkens back to stuff from the 90s. And the majority of things going on here are really elevating the script. Like the performances are so solid. The way that he edits and shoots everything is just so ingenious. The way this film flows, the way it allows you to get so deeply invested in the Butler character, is just really smart and is something that I think only a really great filmmaker could pull off. I had a really great time. I thought this was surprisingly really solid and really, really fun. And really everything I want from a movie. Some great romance, some great action sequences, a couple of really funny moments, but also just an interesting character study. Also a great choice for Austin Butler as an actor to do something like this, where he's at the forefront of the film and he's like the driving emotional force, and the entire film is really built around him. And like basically every single performance he's had so far in his young career, I found myself really impressed with his acting ability and just his natural screen presence and charisma. I would give this a 4 out of 5. A great, grimy New York City crime film. I can't believe that Darren Aronofsky made a better New York crime movie than Spike Lee did this year, but that's the point that we're at here. So go check this out if you want. Speaking of Spike Lee, next week I will be ranking all of his collaborations with Denzel Washington and also talking about some Paul Thomas Anderson movie as I get ready for my ranking of all of his films. Subscribe if you like movies and you want to hear me talk about movies and stuff like that. And that's it. Bye-bye.